All right, Krystal, what are you taking a look at?
Well, guys, we track a lot of COVID outrages here on this show, discussing posturing of pundits who fake like they oppose Big Pharma in order to get anti-vax clicks, but then are completely unwilling to do a single damn thing that would actually challenge pharma power. We've tracked liberals dancing on the graves of people who die from COVID because they wouldn't get vaccinated. We've tracked lying public health officials like Dr. Fauci, who are more interested in manipulating the public and preserving their own careers than in actually telling the truth. But we must never lose sight of what is by far the greatest COVID crime that has been committed. This real-world conspiracy implicates Joe Biden, Big Pharma, billionaire Bill Gates. That is the decision to allow pharmaceutical giants to deny life-saving vaccines to the poor world. If you watch the show, you pretty much know the story. The beginning of the pandemic, everyone was all, it's a World War II style mobilization, we're all in it together. But after public funding helped produce life-saving vaccines, suddenly the message flipped. Now, Moderna and Pfizer are using their socially developed medicines to produce record-breaking private profits by reserving these vaccines for the rich world where governments can afford a premium charge. They have held tight to their patent protections, preventing drug factories around the world from churning out their own less expensive doses. Bill Gates provided cover to do this. He designed, spearheaded, and propped up the UN's COVAX program, which was supposed to purchase and distribute doses to the global south. This program has been a dramatic failure. Africa's vaccination rate today stands at around 7%. Joe Biden is the one person really in a position to try to bring these pharma giants to heel. Instead, his administration has actively blocked a World Trade Organization proposal to do exactly that. It is a crime and it is a disgrace all the way around. And now, an unlikely country is exposing the shameful behavior of the US government with regards to vaccinating the world. Cuba has been suffering under a US embargo for decades that has crippled their economy, made life very difficult for ordinary citizens, and sought to isolate that island nation from the rest of the world. In spite of this, Cuba has successfully developed multiple highly effective COVID vaccines of their own. This is pretty incredible. In fact, the Cuban biotech sector has produced 5 different COVID vaccines, and according to them, after 3 doses, their vaccines are better than 90% effective at preventing symptomatic COVID. So anti-vaxxers, listen, if you hate Big Pharma and you don't trust them, go get the Cuban jab. It is totally free of greedy corporate influence. But I digress. They have also basically succeeded in vaccinating their entire population. More than 93% of the Cuban population, including kids, is fully or partially vaccinated. That's one of the highest rates in the entire world, and it's due to a variety of factors. First, they had the know-how to develop their own vaccines and not rely on anyone else, especially not us. Second, the public health system has outposts in virtually every community, making it accessible and making it trusted. In fact, Cuba has more doctors per capita than any other country in the world. And finally, probably because of that trust and the lack of a profit motive to undermine that trust, Cuba does not have much vaccine hesitancy. But it's not just the Cuban people who stand to benefit here, because these vaccines do not rely on mRNA technology, but instead are what's called subunit protein vaccines. That means they're cheaper to produce, and they also don't require that super cold storage that makes the mRNA vaccines much more challenging to distribute in poor countries. Cuba's vaccines are right now being evaluated for World Health Organization approval, and the Global South is watching closely. They've given up on hoping that the US or Bill Gates or COVAX or, God forbid, Pfizer are going to save them. According to one Cuba expert, a professor in Scotland, the developing world has pinned their hopes on the Cuban vaccine. She tells CNBC, I think it is clear that many countries and populations in the Global South see the Cuban vaccine as their best hope for getting vaccinated by 2025. And in fact, now Cuba is announcing a massive push to help get these life-saving vaccines to the people who need them in a move that should be thoroughly humiliating to the Biden regime if they in fact had any sense of shame whatsoever. Cuba is pledging 200 million vaccine doses to the Global South. That is more than what the U.S. has delivered to all of the Middle East and to all of Africa, according to the Kaiser Family Foundation. At a news conference announcing this pledge, Cuban officials also announced, number 1, solidarity prices for COVID-19 vaccines for low-income countries. Number 2, technology transfer, where possible, for production in low-income countries. And number 3, extending medical brigades to build medical capacity and training for vaccine distribution in those partner countries. All of these elements are totally crucial. They're planning to distribute inexpensive vaccines. They're planning to help build native capacity for production in low-income countries, and they're also committing their own trained health workers to train local workers and set up distribution so that those vaccines actually get into arms. How in the hell is it that Cuba, a country that's, let's be honest, is kind of falling apart, is doing this, and we're not? Think of how shameful that is. We could have been the leader of a World War II-style mobilization in support of curing the world. We could have used this moment to check the power of Big Pharma and shown that we care about a single thing other than corporate profits. We could have created huge amounts of goodwill and national pride by spearheading a mass global vaccination campaign. And from a purely selfish perspective, we would be protecting our own population by helping to vaccinate the world and getting ahead of new variants that could still emerge. Instead, we folded to the greed of the immoral capitalists of Big Pharma. Listen, Cuba's got a lot of problems. I'm not here to whitewash the repression of their government, but when it comes to these vaccines, there is zero doubt who occupies the moral high ground. What a humiliating moment for a fading superpower. And just that contrast, Sagar, when I saw it, made me lose my mind. Hey guys, thanks so much for watching.
That's right. Just as a reminder, you can become a premium subscriber today. Watch the full show completely uncut, our reactions to each other's monologues. You get to listen to it, you get to ask us questions, all that good stuff. Link is right there in the description or at breakingpoints.com.
Best of all, great way to say screw you to the mainstream media.